Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. I have a little paint with me vlog while I work on this pet portrait commission. The client was really lovely and is ordering this for their partner this Christmas. She was super easy to work with, which is always a plus, but she provided this really beautiful reference photo that has this warm orange firelight on the right edge of the dog, which made for a really fun painting at the end. Here I'm just doing a quick colour study of all of these different colour transitions using Procreate. I make a neutral grade background and just swatch them so I can get a sense of what kind of colours to mix before I start that initial block in. I also use an app called Copy It where I can apply a rasterized filter just to get a better sense of where my values are sitting throughout the reference photo. Here you can see that the darkest, most contrasting points are going to be the eyes, nose and centre of the ear. Onto my colour selections, I've gone for a Van Dyke brown. When mixed with the white is going to give a really nice, almost lavender leaning grey tone, which is perfect to juxtapose against that really fiery orange on the right hand side. I wasn't too sure if I was going to use this Pam Red Violet. I didn't actually end up needing it, so it's not included in my colour list for this painting. Here are all the colours I'm using, and I'm using a Michael Harding Fine Artist Oil, which is archival quality. I find I only need smaller tubes in this oil range. It goes a long way. I don't need a lot of paint for a painting of this size. Mixing these oranges and peach tones were so fun. They're just so juicy looking, and blocking them in against those cool greys was especially fun. Here I'm just going for an initial colour block in, nothing too detailed. I tend to use some long-handled, long flat brushes, but just a bit more responsive, and I'm using small rounds for smaller areas here. When working on lighter colour and white fur like this, it's easy to take it a bit too cool toned to the point where the final product can look a little bit washed out, which is why today I've gone for a bright orange underlayer, and it's helped me sort of add a more warm tone that peeks through the paint, but also make better judgments in the colours I apply so that they're not leaning too grey or have too much of a blue undertone in the final painting. For this base layer, my main goal is to make it so that I'm just applying broad sweeps of colour rather than getting too bogged down into detail at this stage of the painting process. These long flat brushes are a new addition to my material list, although I am really enjoying them so far. This edge here is actually really nice for chiseling out more fine areas as well as broad, thick areas of colour. Really useful for my block-ins. Here you can see that I'm coming in with those orange tones on the right hand plane of this dog. I have to take a lot of care in the transitions between these colours because they are so far apart in hue. It can tend to look a bit muddy if they're mixed in too much. My main goal is to just be laying in the colour with very minimal blending in between and just mixing transitional shades rather than blending with my brush. On most occasions, I usually change the background colour to something different than what is given to me in the reference photo. For this case, I've actually stayed pretty close to the original background colour of the reference photo. I just really liked the contrast between this deep dark burgundy and this bright white that's coming through on the fur. I think it brings a lot more attention to the centre around the eyes and the nose as well. After my initial block-in layer is completely dry, I've just come back with some more fine detail work. I'm using a combination of glazing with more transparent mixes that have quite a bit of medium in it, and using transparent pigments to alter the values in places where I feel like they just need to be worked up a bit more. Like this area on the front facing cheek was a bit too bright in the lower section, and I wanted to make it look like it was turning in towards his mouth more. I'm also scumbling with more opaque mixes and working up a bit more of a textural appearance on the edge of the cheek and the muzzle. At this point, I felt like I wanted to push the contrast between the deeper background and the subject a little bit more, so I've gone in with a glaze of alizarin crimson to deepen those areas. I find this part really fun. Once I let the last layer completely dry, I can then go in with my rigger brush and add these tiny little whiskers here and there, just to give that extra sense of detail around the most important areas of this portrait. Once I've let all of the final details dry for a couple of days, I can then go in with my varnish. Because the turnaround time for these portraits often needs to be faster than the actual curing and full drying time of oil paints, I use the Gamblin Gamvar range, which is a lot more breathable and actually allows the paint to still cure underneath that layer of varnish. I've opted for a Satin Gamvar varnish because I like the look of it not being too reflective when hung on a wall. I feel like the colours stay more true to the actual painting from more angles when it's not overly glossy. This is the final piece. I hope that you've enjoyed painting with me today. If you do like this content and you would like to see more from me, remember to like and subscribe. It goes a long way to supporting me, and I hope that you have a lovely day ahead.